Hello. I'm all over the place today. Hello, everybody. Welcome into today's story. It's Wednesday. Octa normally happens on a Tuesday, but yesterday we had a deep on-chain discussion, which was awesome. And people misconstrued many of the questions I asked because they thought either I was being a total bear or asking things because I believed in them. No, I was asking things to make conversations. So hope that was all very clear, but it was a great event. And we will be doing that again with James Check from Check on Chain. He actually loved it too. And next time we're going to go deeper into the charts, deeper into the on-chain. But today we're going to talk about how macro shakes crypto. What's going on? Is the future bright or are we dead? Bitcoin's at $97,000 and people are not happy. They want more. We also had an alt bloodbath. And if you read the media, you think it's like something we've never seen before. But oh yeah, we have. Again, we'll talk about that too. We'll talk about TradFi getting into crypto. We'll talk about some of the changes and regulations, CFTC. We'll talk about bots taking over the world. We'll talk about stable coins and RWA. I mean, a lot to get to. So I want to thank everybody for coming. Thank you as well to the mods in the chat. And let's get into it. I got too many screens open, so I don't know what's going on. I just got to buzz through. And thank you to the team behind me and Not Financial Advice, of course. And shout out to everybody on Patreon and DBF 430 in Australia. Thank you for coming. Chris the Carpenter says, love the channel. So worth the Patreon subscription. Thank you for being part of it. Together we are stronger, and together we share information, and we all learn from each other every single day. And that's the whole mission. It's wonderful. Really wonderful. Let's get into the ugly news first. I'm going to start with the ugly, then the bad, and then get into the good. So be patient for the good. There is good stuff. First of all, what's rattling markets? Well, the weird thing is, it's actually not really rattling markets. We went through the last 3 weeks of tariff concerns, tariff troubles, tariff tensions, and now we've got inflation tensions. But you know what? Markets hanging tough and certain assets are up. So all of this seems to be priced in at this stage. But this did rattle some markets. This is the highest CPI print we've had since early 2023, which is not good. Not good at all. And in other news, the rate of change, everybody, Mary Magdalene, thanks for coming. I'm losing my voice. Inflation rate of change is spiking. And as we say, the most important thing in the world is rate of change, especially when it comes to development and innovation. If there isn't a fast rate of change, it's not good. Also, when it comes to CPI, if there's a fast rate of change, it's also not good. But here you can see the headline, 3-month spiking up nearly at 5%. Headline 6-month right around 3.5%. Core 3-month 3.5%. Core 6-month 3.5%. This, no matter what time frame you look at, it is all terrifying, not good. But you know what? If you're watching this channel, you know I always said the Fed has no control over inflation. Zero. All they can do is destroy demand. That's it. Now, what this typically does to markets, and what's kind of phenomenal, is the fact that rates are very high. They've come down 100 basis points, but the long end of the bond is still very high because nobody wants fiat anymore, and everything is changing. But now we see the CME rate cut prospects are dwindling for March 2025. It looks like things will stay put at the 425 to 450 basis points with a 2.5% chance of them going down. Now, there are elements of inflation that are completely out of control. Eggs. Eggs has become the meme of the day, but they are up 53% in a year. So if you're partial to omelets or boiled eggs or whatever you use eggs for, I don't know, this is going to hurt your pocketbook. But not only are eggs up 53%, but car insurance is up 55%. But I thought eggs was a nicer picture. Car insurance isn't very interesting. But anyway, inflation is on the rise like crazy. But there is some good news. I'm sorry for anybody with EDS out there, but Elon Musk says, as it becomes clear that Doge is working and saving trillions, you will see the long-term treasury bill yields fall. That's good news. Remember, the long end of the bond is driven by market sentiment. And when people are worried about fiat and US default, etc., rates go up. They want to be paid more to offer money, to lend money to the US government. And all Americans will benefit from lower interest payments on mortgages, small business debt, credit card, and other loans. So we'll see. This is exciting. But in order to control inflation, you have to bring the cost of things down, and you have to bring inflation down, and you have to bring interest rates down. That's it. It's not hard. Now, the final piece of ugly news is token unlocks. As usual, the sandbox money grab is still there. Big issuance of, what percentage are they dumping? 8.41%. And again, the gaming, and crypto is just money grab. I didn't even bother looking at the sandbox chart because it's probably garbage, as usual. It has been for many years. Stark, 2.5%. Say, 1.25%. Arbitrum, all the layer 2s are dumping every week or two these days. Prime, 13.7%. And ApeCoin, which also dumps all the time, 2.16%. You begin to get very familiar with all of these things, and they all reflect the poor levels of tokenomics as well. Now, into the bad news. Everybody wants AltSeason, and this was a rocky last 7 days. In fact, last 3 weeks. But AltSeason is still in the middle of the road, which means basically Bitcoin has the slight edge in terms of performance. But when you look at the bloodbath over the last month, whoa, Bitcoin is black. I put a big arrow to show you where Bitcoin lands. And all the others are like just to the left of Bitcoin is Sol, up 5.2% for the month, even though Sol has been very weak. OM, I don't know what that is. Litecoin, Hype, Ondo, Monero, all doing well, beating Bitcoin. Jupiter beating Bitcoin. Jupiter's now at top 50. Woohoo. But if you look to the right, wow, it is nasty. Some of these names are down 45% just in a month. All the usual ones that, a lot of the scam chains that had their pumps are now coming back down to earth, which is how gravity works, which is wonderful in the markets. Remember, over time, the cream will always float to the top. Over time, the markets are a weighing machine. Crypto still has a bunch of scam coins that are really high, but eventually people will figure it out. The dreams will come crushing to an end. But there's more. When you look at the headlines of what happened over the last week or so, you'd think the world ended. Altcoin sector suffers historic losses while Bitcoin remains resilient. The crash from February 2nd was one of the 2.5% worst trading days ever in altcoin history. Let's have a look at the chart, see what it says. This is the worst hit in history. And you can see, yes, this is basically a total 3, which excludes Ethereum and Bitcoin and stablecoins. And you see it's down 23% in 21 days. So yes, it was bad, but the recovery is also pretty fast. You can see it's turning up quite fast now as well. But that was from top to bottom again, down 23% in 21 days. But if you look, cast your eyes to the left of the chart here from November 5th onwards. Oh my goodness, this thing nearly 3x'd in that time frame. But nobody talks about that, okay? Just went straight up. And that's what happens. Again, everything mean reverts. So when you zoom out and you ignore the headlines and you look at the actual chart, you'll see things aren't actually that bad. And we're still up 75% for this market cap since the 5th of November. That's the number you need to know. So yes, things are rocky in the markets, especially in disruptive assets. And that's just the nature of the world. Now, good news. Yay. Let's get into the good news, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you all for coming. Thank you to K8 and TND Tesla and Sean Donnelly. Where's Sean? I don't see Sean. He's always here. I hope he's okay. When I don't see Sean, I get worried. Same thing with TND Tesla. Anyway, let's get into the good news. So over the last week, in Bitcoin terms, Bitcoin is up 2.18%. In fact, let me check on the actual price because it is volatile. Bitcoin's actually up higher now. It's up $97,400. So it went up another $200. The point is, things are not as bad as you would make out. Yes, some things are down against Bitcoin, but only slightly, like Sol, down 1% against Bitcoin. Cardano beat Bitcoin. Again, another one of those weird stories. XRP down 3% versus Bitcoin, etc. In melting ice cube terms, i.e. fiat, slightly similar story because nothing really moved a lot this week. But let's look at some other indicators. Fear and greed is down quite a bit. Last week we had 72. And this week last week. It's funny, it says last week, it says neutral 54. But when I did this time last week, it was actually 72. So this must be measuring a different day. Maybe it did drop. Maybe last week for them would be Thursday, tomorrow. Anyway, the point is we're now at 46, which is a little bit fearful. People are a little bit at the edge of their chairs, getting a little bit nervous. But there's good stuff happening under the scenes. Let's uncover some of that. First of all, shout out to Axel. We were talking a lot about TA and on-chain yesterday. But now this is cool. This shows per Crypto Quant, the realized price of new whales is now $89,200, which basically is the strongest support level for the current consolidation. Remember, we're at 97,500. And you heard me live in the channel. All these people were talking about, we're going back to 50, we're going back to 65, we're going back to 60, we're going back to 70,000. People writing papers saying, it can't, because the buying pressure that's there is too strong. And the long-term holders have sold 70% of what they typically sell. Where is the coinage going to come from? The miners are hodling. We'll talk about that in a second too. So this is possible. If we had a big, nasty black swan or a macro event or something ugly, yes, we get down close to 90,000, where we've been a bunch of times since we hit all new time highs. But here we are. This is really cool because why is this 89,200 level support critical? Because this is where the large players bought Bitcoin at this price, and they are unlikely to sell at a loss because they are putting on a position, not just day trading Bitcoin. And other good news too, funding rates. Again, there's mixed charts on the actual funding rates, but I go back to CryptoQuant and Axel, and the average funding rate across the top 3 exchanges for Bitcoin dropped to 0. Every time this happens in history, not saying it's going to repeat, but it often does, or at the very least rhyme, every such occurrence has ultimately led to a macro bull rally. And it's unclear how long we stay at these levels, but one thing is certain, during this consolidation phase, the price will not fall below 90K, 89K, depending on the wick, despite all the bearish pressure. Essentially, the bulls and the whales are buying the dip, especially I've shown a lot, when we get close to 90,600, 91,000, 92,000, they swoop in and they buy. Not retail, some retail, but mostly the big institutions, etc. Now, another piece that's going to float are boats, which we like. Everybody wants their boat float. Global liquidity. This is from Bitcoin Strategy. Global liquidity is up 1.7% so far year to date, which is not bad too. Focus your eyes. It's very hard to read the golden line. I wish you could zoom into these charts, but the point is, global liquidity is up there. It's just shy of $100 trillion. The Bitcoin price is in gold. The blue shadow is the actual liquidity. And you can see it kind of like peaked up a little bit. That's the 1.7%. But the blue is the year-over-year change, which I like to look at. It's much easier to visualize. The 0 line is what it breached 1, 2, 3, 4 times since 2012. Money goes up. Liquidity goes up. There are some rare exceptions, like middle of 2022, it took a big dip. And a tiny little dip around April 2024. And we noticed as well, typically, after that dip, the price comes down, but it also could be due to summer doldrums and all that type of stuff. Anyhow, money is going up, and it's going to go up more. It has to, because a lot of debt needs to be refinanced at very high rates, which will require money too. And speaking of rates and regulation and governments and all that type of stuff, this is from Crypto Slate. This is a new guy. His name is Brian Quintez. He's from A16Z, which is a top VC firm and who has very large exposure to crypto. And this guy knows crypto. And he was nominated to run the CFTC. Why do we care about the CFTC? Well, they run commodities. And guess what a commodity is? Yes, Bitcoin. And that's why we care. And his has a plan to modernize crypto oversight and maybe bring more stuff under his umbrella. Get it away from the SEC. They should be focused on stonks and bring it over to CFTC. Because most cryptos, especially when they are decentralized, they are not securities, ladies and gentlemen. I'll repeat that. most cryptos, when they're sufficiently decentralized or not securities, they become commodities. Nobody's in control of them. That's the beauty. Nobody's in control of Bitcoin. There's no Bitcoin help desk you can call or whatever. You're completely on your own. So this is exciting. I look forward to more good things. And even though I want crypto to be under the CFTC, because most of them are commodities, but the SEC is also doing great work too. They are, for the first time in 4 or 5 years, being very responsive to needs from the market. When the big TradFi people want things like a Sol ETF approved, they are getting responses. And the whole way it's structured and operate now has completely changed, which is great for us. Now, back to the United States. The SBR States of America is now up to 22 states. Shout out to the BitcoinStatesOfAmerica.com for doing this. I love your maps. Saves me from making them. And it's so we're getting to the tipping point. Once you hit 25, the rest simply have to follow. It takes courage to be first, but once more than half are in, you have no choice. It's like a gun to your head. You got to follow, and they will, which will be fun to watch. Now, there are big TradFi players stacking ahead of time. Shout out to Vivek for real. While you are scared, Goldman Sachs bought 1.6 billion in Bitcoin ETFs. They now hold 2.3 billion ETFs. So what typically happens in markets before a big event happens like this or a regime change, etc., the clever money front runs the action and they pack their boots. This is what we're seeing right now with Goldman, that all of a sudden they are panic struck and they are loading their boots with Bitcoin, which is wonderful to see. And there's more. This is a really cool thing. ProtonMail, not a user of ProtonMail, but I do know a lot of people that do use it. It's a very secure email system. And I might have a look at it now because this makes it quite interesting from documenting Bitcoin. The email service provider ProtonMail, I think they're based in Zurich, Switzerland, if I'm not mistaken, in the Schweiz. They released an open source Bitcoin wallet to their 100 million users. And I can pretty much guarantee you, without doing a deep dive into this open sourced Bitcoin wallet, which we probably should do, let me know in the comments below if you're interested, but their email is very secure. And I assume their Bitcoin wallet also will be very secure. And I love to see this. The kind of intersection between communications and crypto is wonderful. Now, let's look at money flow. It's going to be a bit of a story today. There's a lot to get through, a lot of good stuff. 5 weeks of solid flows. Despite what you might think with the price action, again, we are $2,400 from 100 grand, ladies and gentlemen. And people are still frustrated. But I don't know, it's human nature. But digital asset investment products saw inflows for the 5th consecutive week, totaling about $1.3 billion. About 63,157 Bitcoin have been bought since the 1st of Jan. Okay, they bought a truckload. And the question is, will they continue to buy? I think definitely the ETFs will do another $42 billion in 2025. Maybe a lot more, depending on what happens. Again, things like this should not be ignored. Very big news. Let's look at the different assets that are flying. I have not seen a chart like this in as long as I can remember, and I've got a very visual memory, where everything was black. There was no red. There was no outflows. Everything was black. So we had $407 million come into Bitcoin, which now that's about 7.1% of the total market cap, which is good. Ethereum took in a big rake of cash, $793 million. This is kind of interesting because I have been talking a lot about how record shorts are on ETH right now. We could see a record squeeze. I don't hold any ETH, so I got no dog in this fight. But again, if you see Ethereum spiking above $3,000, do not be surprised because they are the shorts who are chasing the longs to cover their shorts. That's how it works. It's kind of funny. But that is a big bank. I've never seen that much come into ETH as well. And it's also outpaced Bitcoin for the first time, again, as long as I can recall. Other notable inflows, XRP had 21 million, Solana 11.1 million. It's the biggest flow into Solana as well this year. And some crumbs into some of the other names too. But again, money is coming into crypto. TradFi is waking up, just like Goldman. There's something big cooking. We can't quite see it. Now, related to all of this is RWA, and it's not a record company. That's RCA. I always get them confused. Not that I ever bought records or anything. But anyway, this is narrative time, and real-world assets are one of the few bright spots in this current market. You see Bitcoin up, this is over the last month, 2.9%. Ethereum down 15%. But that money is flowing into Ethereum, so that's going to move. I think it's going to move soon. And real-world assets up 26%. Why? What's going on? What's going on with this? Well, we have a company called Franklin Templeton, $1.3 trillion money runner, asset manager, and they just launched a tokenized fund and a money market fund called FOBXX on Solana. And the big thing about this, RWA is popping off, which is great. But why? Because TradFi is coming in. Institutional DeFi adoption accelerates. And these giants, they're bypassing Ethereum and Ethereum L2s as well. Because they want speed, they want throughput. Soon they'll get regulatory approval. And this attracts pension-grade products. There's no longer a concern about Solana. Back in the day, you go back to 2024, if you can remember back that far, everybody said, real-world assets will only happen on Ethereum because it's been around longer and it's secure, but it's too slow and it can't scale, and it's expensive. So Franklin Templeton are jumping on the RWA bandwagon with the winning chain. We'll talk more about that in a second. Other players are also building RWA offerings. Remember, as I said many times before, the world will be tokenized. Everything from real estate to stocks to pension funds to whatever you can imagine, vehicles maybe, will be tokenized. It'll be broken down on the blockchain. And these other players too, not just Franklin Templeton, but other companies that are playing with this, with government bonds, with Etherfuse, MetaWealth, Bax, Libre, etc., are all doing it. And this is why the narrative is on fire. And all the RW plays are on fire. We'll see how long they'll be on fire. I think this is going to be a persistent trend. I did share last week, I think, Toli said trillions will come into RWA on Sol, and they're ready for it. And that's where they just got through some battle testing with the memes in 2024, and they're ready for real-world assets. Speaking of the top cryptos on the planet, Solana now has 7.1 million daily active users. Shout out to Cardano, 30,000. So just want to say that Solana now has 240 times more users than Cardano. 240, that's big. Number 2 in the box is Near. It does shopping coupons in Asia. Binance Chain, 1.2 million. Aptos is back, 1.1 million, above Base. I haven't seen that happen in a while. Base has been running the show for a while, and they're falling back. And Bitcoin, 540,000 users. And then Sui, 530. Sui has less users than Bitcoin. That's interesting. And Bitcoin activity has been kind of quiet lately, so interesting. Anyhow, let's get back to more news. Stablecoins. Stablecoin dominance has changed a lot. Radical change. I've never seen such a spike in stablecoin market cap in such a long time, definitely on a percentage basis. But now USDC Circle has now 56 billion in market cap compared to about 140 for Tether. And that 56 billion is a new record market cap for Circle. And why is it exploding? In fact, look at this little percentage here in green, if you can see it. I probably can't. I do remember it was 23% or something, is the growth over the last month of the market cap of the stablecoin, whereas Tether grew by 3%. Circle, 23%. Okay, and I say, if that continues at that growth trajectory, by sometime late summer, maybe even early summer, Circle will be as big as Tether. And Tether isn't like a 10,000 pound gorilla. It's huge. But why is Circle growing so fast? Guess why? DEX activity on Solana. That's driving a huge demand for stablecoins. Everything is related. It's all connected. Think connective tissue. From governments to regulations to TradFi to activities to stablecoins to DEX volume. It's all connected. RWA. I got it. Makes me think of an idea to put together a big connective tissue map as to how you pull on one string and how it impacts all the others. I'll work on that in my spare time, which I have none. Anyway, let's talk about stocks for a second. Stocks over the last 7 days. Wow. It's kind of mixed. Tesla down 8%. Tesla is getting hit pretty hard because of a lot of activities that are happening out there in the market. And people don't like the kind of stuff that a certain guy is doing. Anyhow, moving on from that. But NVIDIA is back after the shellacking it got from DeepSeek. It's up 5% over the last week. Google down 4%, Apple up 1.7%, Microsoft flat pretty much, Amazon down 2%. So we haven't really gotten off to the races. By the way, I've got a rule du jour coming out on Patreon, which ties into exactly this sometime later today or tomorrow. I don't know when it's coming out, when I finish writing it. But the point is, winners take most. But these winners, they're disruptive assets and they're very interest rate sensitive. So if there's no prospect of a rate cut, keeps the lid on price action. But what is interesting is this cool chart, which is flying around the internet. Shout out to Carl Menger. It talks about how maybe, if you look at this chart, green is the NASDAQ composite priced in Bitcoin, and gold is Bitcoin. But some people are saying, oh my God, so Bitcoin is the NASDAQ is exit liquidity for Bitcoin or something like that. But the point is, even though QQQ is disruption and it's done really well, when you look at it compared to Bitcoin, it has not at all. And that's how it is. Now, speaking of proxies are on fire. It's going to be a huge, huge narrative as well for 2025. And all of them keep stacking as quickly as they can. This is the Hodl model. And the big takeaway from this is proxies are getting cheap. You can see if you look at Marathon, if you invest $1 in Marathon, you get 79 cents of Bitcoin worth back. So basically, think of it as 80% Bitcoin for every dollar you invest, which means their mining business is potentially a drag on their bag. I would bet you any money, okay, if you took Marathon and you got them to offload their mining business, maybe even sell it, and just follow the MicroStrategy playbook, the stock performance would be better. Who's willing to take a wager with me on that one? I do believe the mining business is a drag on the business because, as I've always said, Bitcoin miners, they're great to buy in the bear, but in the bull, it's so cutthroat and wicked. Gains is there, or Genius company, I just call it Gains, GNS, is about 70 cents. Semler, 67 cents. MicroStrategy, 57 cents. MicroStrategy NAV premium 1.76 is kind of low. And the rest are there. And I'll be adding much more names to this as well because we've got a lot of small companies that are jumping on the playbook. And it's kind of interesting to play from an R perspective because when these things approach 1, they spike. And in fact, I spoke about gains on Sunday in the Q&A. Guess what went up 50% today? Gains. It takes 4 days for the market to digest the information on Sunday. So don't forget to watch the Sunday show for some quick gainers. And another chart I just put together because I was interested in this visualization myself. On the left axis, you have the size of the Bitcoin bag. $46.423 billion in Bitcoin is how much MicroStrategy owns. And you get, for every dollar you invest in stock, you get 57 cents back. But remember as well, if you just hold MicroStrategy, you'll get more sats per share every time they buy every single week. And that's fantastic. And it was a little thought I read somewhere late last night, or maybe even early this morning at 4 a.m. I don't know. But somebody said in the MicroStrategy group, they said they don't want to make the same mistake they did with Apple when it was at 35 cents and selling too early or selling at all. So we'll see where this goes. Either way, it'll be fun. It's been an incredible ride, and we'll see how far it goes. And other proxies too. We have the kind of opposite side of the spectrum to MicroStrategy playbook. You got the Sol playbook. You got companies now like Neptune that are stacking SpaceX, Solana, and Bitcoin. You got Sol Strategy that are building validators, buying validators, partnering. They are stacking as well. But these guys just partnered with a company called 3iQ for managing their proposed Solana staking ETF. Pending regulatory approval. It's not approved yet. But I tell you, one thing that is certain, there will be in-kind ETFs, which means you'll be able to deposit your Bitcoin or your Solana into an ETF, and you'll be able to withdraw it. And I think that'll be a non-tax triggering event, which is good news. The second thing that's also going to happen is you'll be able to get staking rewards on your ETFs, because I think it's completely dumb that people would buy an Ethereum ETF and not get staking return. I think it's dumb. It's like if I was an alien in a spaceship looking down and saying, who would ever do that? Anyway, TradFi does, because they don't understand how that works. Anyway, moving on. Solid Strategies also bought a big bag, another 25,000 Solana recently. And remember, what's interesting, and now they own 214,000, if an AltSeason kicks in, which I believe it will, I believe it already has, I believe it always does, and I'll go back to this chart again just to show you what I mean. There's always something outperforming Bitcoin. Always. You'll never see Bitcoin on the far left of this chart as long as you live. You can take that to the bank, by the way. Something will always outperform Bitcoin. So therefore, there's always an AltSeason to be had. And I've noticed a lot of depressed sentiment thinking, oh, AltSeason's never going to happen. It's dead. It always happens. It's going to happen. It's going to kick off. The tailwinds are just coiling up behind the winning assets. I think you know what they are too. Just look at this chart. As a refresher, you'll figure it out pretty fast. Now, that's Solid Strategies, building their bag. And let's talk about bots for a second, because these things are coming. And I've been warning since 2022, fit, fast, and furious, AI, bots, autonomy. It's happening really quickly. In fact, I've never seen the job board at Tesla explode like this. Nothing but bot engineers, manufacturing of bot engineers, reinforced learning engineers, process engineers, quality engineers, data labelers, mechanical design engineers, I forget the name of those things, the actuator engineers, and you got people being hired all over the world, from Athens, Greece, to Nevada, to Palo Alto, Fremont, Texas, everywhere. These bots are coming, thousands of them, before the end of the year. Mark my words. And why? Why? Because Elon sees something that maybe some of the rest of the world is not aware of. And again, get exposure to bots, everybody. I urge you. It's like 2017. I was urging people to get exposure to Bitcoin. Get exposure to bots, ladies and gentlemen. If you ignore everything I say, that's fine. I don't care. I don't give financial advice. But the humanoids are coming. They are coming. This is a cool article. Shout out to Sanjay as well. That we have now, I don't know how many, I think 102 humanoid robots are going to be running a half marathon. And many will be trained on essential skills like walking, making beds, washing dishes, screwing bolts, welding, typing, singing, dancing, juggling. They're doing it all. This is an unprecedented robot school, okay, supported by the Chinese government, and it's a microcosm of where China wants to go. They know they have a population problem. They know they have a growth problem. They know they want to be the best in the world, and they are not doubling down, not quadrupling down. They're 10xing down on humanoid robot manufacturing and development in China today, while the rest of the world is sitting on their hands, with the exception of Tesla. Yeah, there's a couple of other smaller players, but it's going to be it's just like, it's like Ford and GM getting into bots. They're just never going to make it. They can't even make an EV. So that's just the reality. And what is most startling as well, that I've stressed many times before, if you've read my AI impact stuff, this is going to be critical for GDP growth in the future. That's why, hopefully, clever economies understand the importance of Elon Musk. Because if you have, as technology advances and expands rapidly, robots are set to become a key driver of economic growth. That's it. They will drive everything. Your GDP will be a function of how many bots you have and how good they are. That's it. And they will replace the workforce and augment the workforce, so the workforce can focus on much more higher valued activities. So again, get exposure to bots. And finishing on a happy note, not that bots are not happy, but a lot of people feel very threatened by change. So, I always say embrace or die. When change comes, embrace it. Do not be afraid of it. Hep the Sorg, as if anybody knows what that means. It's a Swiss expression. But grip the worry is what I say. But meme of the day, impress her with something expensive. Eggs. I thought that was so cute. No longer diamond rings, but 24 eggs. That's the new diamond ring. So thank you. All these videos are turned into a Substack by the team behind me. Thank you all so much. And I hope you got your intelligence amplified a little bit with lots of KPM knowledge per minute. Thank you once again to K8 and the mods in the chat and DBF 430 and all the familiar faces here. Team D Tesla, Swiper No Swiping, Hodlistics, the whole gang. Thank you for coming. Let's go till tomorrow. Good night. Why is this not working? Nothing ever works. There. Allow.